like there's so many people looking for solutions, and I feel like for me it was the one thing that changed my life so much, and that I just started sharing what was changing my life, and then I saw lots of lives being changed by that. And I remember when I learned from my hypnotherapist, when she started helping me, I told her one day, and it does kind of make me cry, I said, if I can help one person the way you've helped me, I've done my job. One of the most emotional things for me is my own mom, who was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I was studying hypnosis probably about 3 or 4 years into mindset studies. And she called me and said that she was going to have to learn sign language, because if she lived through the brain tumor, number one, she was going to lose all her hearing. So we were devastated. And so I said, we need to go to more doctors. We need to find more solutions. And she said, Cappi, I have a brain tumor and we don't know. And so I started deleting and giving her suggestions to stop saying that to herself. And we kept seeking solutions. And she is now 84. And I hypnotized her through her. She was one of the first recipients of gamma ray. So I hypnotized her in between the dosage of radiation in her brain. And she only lost her hearing in one side of her head. She didn't have to have surgery, and she's lived for almost 30 years after that. It's pretty amazing. So what was cool, not only to see her success, was that her doctors came to me and were like, what are you doing to this woman? She's like our miracle patient. So I started speaking at the Good Samaritan Hospital, and I ended up at the interdisciplinary care group at Hoag Hospital for several years, just talking to doctors about how they talk to patients and the impact that especially someone with cancer or somebody dealing with what she was dealing with goes through when they hear that. So I would hypnotize her to kind of delete and distort that data, and it was really cool. So yeah, it was pretty emotional, pretty neat. The whole experience of watching a person go through something devastating or have an impact like that, and then be able to see how they can feel about something. One of the things I often say is what we feel we make real, right? So if you're worried or you're stressed or you're consumed with the thing you're trying to deal with, and you're going to a therapist or going to a doctor, like she was doing all the traditional things, right? So when I started making her little cassette tapes, I said, you listen to this every single night. And she did, right? But I knew the power of the subconscious. So to see her how she was handling it, how she would talk to herself then, and how she went through that gamma ray was just a totally different outcome. So I was proud of her, and I was proud of me for being able to guide her through that level of I think a lot of people wouldn't have made it, honestly. I don't know what the average individual would have gone through without that level of input every night. I always tell people hypnosis isn't some woo, woo, woo. It's repetition, right? And the body is always listening. It doesn't turn off. So when we go to sleep and we're deep in delta, then the body still hears. Like our hearing doesn't go off, right? But that critic does, that doubt does, that fear does. So that's really where the power is when you go to sleep and you can put new programs directly into the subconscious. The body's brilliant. What I've learned through my own journey is that I had so many doubts about myself. I never felt good enough. I always felt just different than other people. I was the fifth of 6 kids, and I lived in a very affluent neighborhood, but my family wasn't wealthy. So I always felt like, oh, they're rich and we're not. Like just that whole not good. And I call it the enoughness factor. I think a lot of people struggle with not fitting in, and I didn't feel like I was smart or pretty or special. And, I moved here from Chicago to California, and it was tough. I never felt like I fit in, if that makes sense. So I think what happens is we're growing up, because as much as I know about the subconscious, we get programmed from 0 to 8 years old. So that self-doubt, I don't know if I'd call it a mistake. I just call it through so many experiences of not feeling like I fit in. My name's Cappi. I mean, I had a weird name. I moved a lot, so it was always that I feel a little different thing. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. Like, how do you be Susie or Debbie, or how do I fit in, right? So for me, when I started learning this work, really what I began to understand is we all have our own incredible greatness. I just thought mine was weird because I was always intuitive and I knew a lot more than other people knew, and I felt like I was weird. But really, as I got older and started accessing more of my true nature, and then putting those new beliefs in myself that I didn't have to be a certain way or do a certain thing to be in. Like, I exist, I'm already here, I'm enough. Like, what do I have to prove, right? So that approval thing, or that inner approval, I don't know if it's a mistake as much as it is. I think it's a common feeling that so many of us have, that some people overcompensate to be enough, and a lot of people never live to their true potential because they don't feel enough. I would say that was for me my own thing of what I had to deal with as I started doing this work, really discovering those core feelings about ourselves that sometimes we don't like to admit we have. There's no quick fix, there's no magic pill, and I think that somebody has to be willing. That's kind of my key word, right? Like, you can be in a marriage, you can be in any relationship, but if both people aren't willing to look or communicate or explore, then that relationship isn't going to grow. And I feel the same thing about personal growth. You have to be willing to go, something in my life isn't working, and maybe I'd like to improve something about myself. Maybe it's my, income, my health, my relationships, whatever. And I think that because we live in such a fast-paced, technology, information overloaded world today, that people are looking for a quick fix. It's like, oh, I'll read a book, or I'll listen to this podcast, or we're on information overload. And information's really good, but if you're not willing to really explore what's in you, I often say the subconscious is like a trash can, and a lot of people try to pile trash on top of like a full trash can. You can't put more trash in it. It'll just flow, it'll overflow, and that's how I feel like the subconscious is. There's so much already in there that most people don't take the time to even know what do they believe about stuff, what do they feel about stuff, and they're trying to pack information on it, and it's overflooding. It's not really getting inside of who they are and what they already have stored in there, if that makes sense. So to me, it's that willingness to go, let me dig a little deeper. Let me see what's under there, and is this feeling and this emotion and belief serving the things I say I want? So if it's not, how do we let that go, discard it, dissolve it? And then how do we then, where I use hypnosis, how do we then go put new beliefs in there? There is a recipe to change, and I call it a dual dynamic, and I'll break it down for just a second. People want change, they want something different. So they go, I'm going to get it, or I'm going to go to church, or I'm going to read a book, right? Again, they're trying to get the information. But if you understand what's in me first, what do I believe and what do I feel about this thing? Okay? If I don't believe I can make the money, or if I don't believe I can lose weight, if I don't believe I can be healthy, you can go read books on it all day long. You have to start with the belief. So we have to logically use the conscious mind first, understand what's inside of us. Then once we understand that level of what's been integrated into the nervous system, into the belief system, into the thoughts, into the mind, right? Body, spirit, heart, all parts of us. Then for me, how I help people the most is, how do I dissolve and help a person delete that energy? There's a process to that. Do I use hypnosis? Yes. Do I use other methodologies to help a person? Yes. That's why I love what I do, because I know how to hone in on that right away. Then the hypnosis part for me is making that product, like you've listened to, and a lot of my clients listen to, through that repetition. So I often tell people hypnosis isn't just poof, magic wand, done. You need to integrate that new level of learning into the heart, into the subconscious, through repetition. because we're on information overload, we have a shorter attention span, right? And so that repetition is critical for ongoing success. So once somebody's done, I don't really ever call it done, because I listen to hypnosis constantly, and I've been doing this almost for 30 years now. So to me, I make myself a new session every 3 or 4 weeks. And then I just listen to that one thing. So I tell my clients whatever it is they're doing, and frequently people buy systems. It's not usually a CD. It's usually a few sessions or a few different CDs or whatever. Then they would move through that progression. And then I have like either workbooks, or if I'm working with them, then I would ask them, so after 3 weeks, what are you noticing? Get a notebook, get a paper, sit down, and notice the small things that are shifting for you. Because those little incremental changes often turn into bigger changes.